Hey there, in today's video, we are literally taking a pile of scraps, like little pieces of scrap paper, and making a collage. I'm just showing you, I was about ready to throw out all this scrap paper that I had, the edges that had been cut off things, and I decided, oh, I'll just use a few of these pieces to make a collage. And then I did another one, and then I thought, hey, I might as well show you guys what I'm doing. So I made a video showing you just literally collaging using these tiny scraps that were left over. I still have a ton. I could just keep going and going and going. But what I'm going to say is it's perfect for a day when you're having a hard time getting started, because there's nothing to do. You just are literally gluing down pieces of paper. And if you don't like it, then you paint over it, or keep collaging over it. So it's, in my book, this is a win-win project. So anyway, I hope you give it a try. I hope you don't throw out all your scrap paper, and it's time to start collaging. In a prior video, I showed you how I made these little 4x4 canvas blocks. And I showed you how I cut the paper from scraps of paper such as this. I cut it down to a 4x4. Well, what you get left with is all of this good stuff. So initially I was going to throw it all into my recycling bin. And then I thought, oh, I'll use some of the scraps to make a collage. And I was like, whoa, I really like the result of this over this larger page. And then I did another one in a book art journal. That one was just a soft cover. This one's a soft cover mixed media journal, like 9.5 by 12. And then this is a large art journal, a book that I've turned into an art journal with pages. Anyway, and then I did this one as well. I thought I would show you how I did this. And honestly, I could paint on top of it, and maybe I will, but I really like how it turned out. So I thought I would show you how to use your scraps from, other projects. And I mean, I'm not talking like these are little scraps, some of them, maybe use some of the bigger ones, and probably I will. But just to collage those down, and what a cool effect you can get. So I'm going to get a different art journal that I haven't used yet to do this. And then I will show you kind of my process for how to use these little random pieces. And obviously you're not going to be able to use every single piece, but it is fun to kind of use up the things that you have and create something new. Before I get started, I wanted to show you, I have this stuff called Art Guard, and it's a barrier cream. And often when I'm using collage, especially, that stuff just sticks to my hand and I feel like it peels off forever. This goes on like kind of a cream, and it does help. It does help to kind of not help you'll be able to, it just is a barrier between yourself and the medium that you're using. I don't always think to use it, but when I'm collaging, if I can remember, it makes me really happy. So I have this is a homemade art journal, and maybe sometime I'll show you how I did this. It didn't turn out as good as I'd like, so I would like to actually do another one at some point. It's very simple. But so I have this one because I wanted to do an open two-sided when I do this collage. I have matte medium. I have a catalyst wedge, but you could also use like a card to smooth out. I think that helps. I also have like a color shaper, and then a 1-inch flat brush, which I probably am going to try to mostly use. I actually don't know. Once I get going, we'll see how it goes. I have all my papers here, and I already mentioned the matte medium. So okay, so to get started, wow, it's hard to decide. So I think I'm going to focus on, I'm going to use a few bigger pieces to begin, maybe just to get something down, because of course the beginning is always the trickiest part. One thing you could do when working in a journal like this is to actually put deli paper in between to protect the other pages. But in this case, I'm not super worried about it. This is watercolor paper, and it's just soaking up the matte medium. So I do not have any gesso or anything like that down. So I'm going to scrape that down. I'm trying to get that in the crease there so it lays flat, although it's not like it's super important, but I would like it to stick at least. So usually I can get this to stick, not quite so troublesome. Okay, well, we'll come back to that piece if it doesn't keep sticking, and just keep adding papers on. So I'm going to add this one down in the corner down here, and maybe I'll just put a bunch of matte medium on here to get it started soaking in. Typically, I would put some also on top, underneath, and on top. Maybe it's this paper that's a little bit thicker. Sometimes thicker paper has a harder time sticking, you know, like adhering to your paper. So that's a time, and it looks like I have some paint on here, which is, I actually don't care. Sometimes the thicker the paper, the harder it is to adhere. But I think what I'm going to do is, once I'm kind of showing you, I'm not really thinking it through too much as I'm doing this. I'm going to mostly stick with, you know, the colors that I feel like I may not include like the orange. I might want to stick with like the browns and the creams and that kind of thing. So that's something to think about as you're pawing through. The other thing is, I'm probably not going to use little teeny pieces like this. Although you could, I mean, that could make something very cool. So I think what I'll do is, since I've kind of got it going, basically I'm going to put matte medium down. I'm going to put my paper with some matte medium on top, and then, you know, use my catalyst wedge or scraper tool to adhere it. And I see that one lined up too straight, and I don't want it to line up. So and by line up, I mean the edges were the same. I kind of want to mix it in a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do is, you know, show you a little bit of this, but there isn't much to talk about. Just, it's more seeing the process. So, you know, grab your scrap paper and look through and find some beautiful colors and things that you want to add, and then just start collaging them. So I'm going to speed this up so that I can just kind of work, because there isn't a whole lot to say. And if there is, then I will pause it and I will explain anything, or when I get near the end. Okay, as you can see, I kind of collaged down everything, but there are some gaps, and I want to fill those in different places. Also, this whole part, I like this, but this feels too blank, so I might, it looks like we have a big, you know, like light colored spot in the middle. This all has a lot of interest, and I am trying to look at lights and darks next to each other and trying to put similar things, so we also have, you know, color in a couple different locations across, so it kind of all kind of ties together. So I'm going to just, again, work quickly, just putting in some, you know, a few more pieces, and then we are just about done. Okay, as you can see, I've finished, and I still have a complete, I could probably do, I don't know, like 50 of these kind of pages. Super easy, super fun. And, you know, like I said, I'm not sure if I'll paint over it or not. You certainly could. I could do a glaze over it. I could do all kinds of different things. But I hope it inspires you to just go through, before you throw out all your miscellaneous papers, which honestly, normally I would have, or these would be in the recycling bin. I would say maybe the bigger pieces. But this is a really fun way to use up those scraps. And I think it turns out, you know, the pieces that aren't big enough to really do a whole lot with. Anyway, I hope you give it a try, because it is fun to kind of just use what you have and create something that's very interesting, and without, you know, on it, especially on a day when maybe you are having a hard time getting started, grab your scraps and just start collaging them down.